Good evening. Welcome to Drawing the Owl, episode 15, an RPG design vlog where we do things that are not yet fun. My name is Sydney Icarus. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the sweet little owl of the RPG community. It's a joy to not be joining any of you tonight because this is an unexpected session. So what happened was I worked the last 8 days pretty much straight. I am very tired. I had a very strange day at work today. And then I've gotten home and I've thought, you know what, this is the perfect time at about 10:30 on a whatever today is, Tuesday night, that to do some design stuff. Now it's about 11 degrees Celsius in my house, so I'm wearing my big comfy robe. It is cold and it's uncomfortable, and I don't want to do this. So I'm going to do the thing that I always do when I don't want to do this, and that's hold myself accountable to other people, to people that are much cooler than me. And that's y'all. That's you. And I'm so very grateful that that you're around for me to hang with when I'm feeling a little bit like I don't want to be here. We're going to do some broad stuff today because I think that I've done a lot of functionality work over the last couple of days, just thinking like every now and then I'll be like, oh, that's a move, or that's a thing that I want to see in the game, or that's a piece of leverageable content, I guess. And so I've been making lists, lots and lots of little lists, little incomplete lists that don't quite touch each other. And a big part of that is that now I need to put the pieces together. There is that is a much more difficult thing than I thought it was going to be, mostly because of my own drive and motivation and stuff. There's been some really cool changes, though, actually, over the last couple of days, which is that I've been continuing this genre soaking that I've been doing, where I've been listening to. I drove to Bendigo the other day, which is about 2 hours from my place for work. And on the way, I listened to the Bonnie and Clyde musical, like just selected songs from it like 3 or 4 times. When I got there, I was really sleepy. So I went straight to my Airbnb and I slept. And I had Bonnie and Clyde dreams. And at the end of that, I was like, fuck yeah. Like I'm doing the imagining, which is really exciting. So Bonnie and Clyde dreams is a huge step forward. And it's been really helpful because when I do that, I see what I want stories to look like in my head, which is that the thing that I was joking with Ryan about before about Bonnie and Clyde fanfic. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of things that I have been doing, and I'm going to show you. I've spoken before about functionalism and structuralism, the idea that some moves are about Fraser used 2 other words which are probably a little bit better, given the baggage around them. One is prescriptivism and one is suggestivism, or prescriptive and suggestive moves and move design. And I've been doing a lot of prescriptive move design. The reason for that is that my suggestive bits are too broad at the moment. There are too many ways, I think, is something that I learned going through my media list. There are too many ways to approach the Bonnie and Clyde problem. The Bonnie and Clyde problem being that you have 2 characters who are very interesting and sexy when they're together, and very powerful, but need inherent conflict. That is, you're super hot outlaws together, but the law is a problem. Or and also the other thing about the Bonnie and Clyde problem is that so many of the things that we would do to avoid the law are things like hunkering down and hiding, and these really passive things. and that's, I guess that's the core thing that I'm talking about here. One way to approach Bonnie and Clyde is it's basically a game of hide and seek. The MC plays the sheriff, and you play Bonnie and Clyde, and you have to go hide in a cupboard and kiss each other. And when the sheriff finds you, you die in a shootout. Holy shit, this game sounds amazing. Who wants to play cupboard kissing and Clyde with me? Because I super do. But that's a way to approach the Bonnie and Clyde problem. But I don't want that. I don't want cupboard kissing. I want shootouts and adventure, and I want the law to catch up to you, and then you got to smooch to outrun them or whatever, right? Like I super want the intimacy part of it, but I want that to be couched around the inherent violence and toxicity of the relationship. So let's talk about the prescriptive design that I've been doing, because then I get to show you stuff. Showing you stuff is always more fun. By the way, this is the comfiest goddamn robe I've ever owned in my life, and I've owned it for like 8 years, and it is the best. Okay, so this is super messy, but super useful to me. So what I've done is let's change some views. I always do this for you, my unfortunate Google Hangouts friends. This is the kid, and this is how we want. This is the like character sheet for the kid, right? Where what I've done is I've said, what do I need it to do? What's the prompt? What are the options? And then I've just filled those in. And I basically filled these in over the period of 8 days. So the kid, so functionality, we need a name. So I'm known around here as, and we don't just put name because this isn't about their name. If I just put name, characters are going to think, or people are going to think about like Jeffrey or whatever. But I don't want names like that. I want like the kid, or like Fast Hands Williamson, or like Shooter McGraw. Definition core. So who are you? What makes you the kid? What are your limitations? Where's some conflict going to come from? Motivations and obstacles. Obstacles are specifically people, which is important to me. Connections generate some stuff in the world. This is part of that world ending at the PC's horizon stuff. And then some history, where I don't really want to talk about history, and I don't really want to talk about marks. What I do want to talk about is this, because what you're going to see is a couple of moves here, right? Now, the moves have gone in really different ways for me, where we need a fiction interrogation move, right? So we've got this eyeball move. You trigger it by doing something fairly hostile, because that's the way that Clyde works. You lock your eyes on them, which is inherently conflicting. You roll your wild stat. You get to ask a question on a 7 to 9, and then on the overshoot, the 10 plus. This is a part of what makes this game different, I think. You ask other questions, but they notice your interest, right? They notice that you are, because you're being too wild. They notice that happens. That creates conflict. Cool. So what kind of conflict do I want out of it? Well, that's where this comes in. That's where this next bit comes in. Where like, what benefits do I want to see people getting out of the move? And this, to me, has been a really helpful part of my design. And this is what I would call prescriptivist design, or what I would previously, in that like structuralism and functionalism design discussion, talk about starting with the pieces. So in this, what I've said, what these X's are, is that I want one of the options to be that you gain mission pool. And I want, obviously, this fiction thing is basically, do I want fictional complications, fictional benefits? So if you have a question that you want to ask of them, how can I get them to do something? That fits this fiction one, right? Mission pool, and then healing harm is another benefit. There's probably, at the moment, this only has 2 results. You either choose to gain 1 mission pool, or you choose to answer your fictional question. And I'm not sure. And like, that could have 3 or 4 questions underneath it, which a lot of these sort of moves do. Let's find one. I saw one I liked the other, which is the Veil's Probe. The Veil, all reference sheets, down to the bottom. Probe. So probe is this version of this question, I guess, in the Veil or something similar to it. And when you probe over here, these are all fiction results. They're just different versions of it, which is great. And maybe that's enough. So that's kind of what that tick means. And then over here are the costs, which is if you go on this 10 plus, what happens. So they notice your interest, they create a fictional complication, ticks over here in fiction. But on this second move, which is the make a threat, the intimidate move, when you demand action with explicit threats, maybe, here's my cost. You either get as a success or there's a scuffle or someone else intervenes or something like that, right? Which is like maybe you have to hurt them or get hurt yourself. So, maybe harm, maybe marks, maybe corruption. I really like corruption being a part of these costs. We've spoken about that before. So this has been really helpful for me just to kind of get in my head the limitations of the moves. So I mentioned going into that one of the problems is there are so many ways to approach this. By saying I need a move, and it's been this weird back and forth where I've been like, okay, we're going to do an intimidate move because I want to see Clyde intimidate people. So Clyde has an intimidate move. Okay, what's the cost to that? Well, maybe one of the costs is harm. Okay, well, let's go back and say that on a 10 plus, they pull a gun on you, and that links into your harm thing. And then you're like, okay, well, we'll come on back and then look at the list of them and be like, oh man, every move I have has a harm cost. Maybe I don't want this to have a harm cost, so I take that off. And that's kind of, I don't want Intimidate to have harm on the table because the violence move has harm on the table, and I don't want that to feed into it directly. I want it to be indirect. So it's really, really cool thing, right? It's been very helpful to me, rather than being a cool thing. It's probably more accurate. So this see also thing has been super useful as well, which is like name a move that is similar that I can use as framing, which has been excellent. And that goes right through playbook moves and into partner moves. And this is, this is Bonnie's, this is the partners, and she gets exactly the same thing, and that's been super useful. These are the partner moves, which I've said you'll notice that not one of the of Clyde or Bonnie's moves heals harm. That's this one here. They don't have moves to heal harm alone. And so what I decided is that I really wanted that healing harm to be sitting in this partner thing, right? So what we're going to do is talk about that interaction. And that interaction is what's an example of that interaction in gaming that functions the way I want it to? Oh, the sprawl. The sprawl. Fuck it. Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is so much better. Blades in the Dark is so much better for what I want to do here. It's not a better game than the sprawl. It's a better example for this. In Blades in the Dark, there is a flowchart that we're going to find that does exactly that says what I want it to do. And what I want to do is actually replicate this version of the flowchart for oh man, the flowchart is not as good as I thought it was. That's okay. It helps. So this is the flowchart for Blades, which is that we have these character scenes. These character scenes create consequences. Consequences give us information that helps us choose a target and create a plan. Once we've chosen a target and created a plan, we go to a score. We do the stealing. We do the fun, sexy stealing of the score so that we can get money to pay for our downtime activities over here in downtime. And it creates this circle. Night Witches does the same circle where you uh, uh, okay, in Blades it's a positive circle where you steal things so that you can do downtime activities so that you can get your resources back so you can go and steal more things. In Night Witches it's a negative circle where you are forced to go on missions so shit breaks, then you have to fix the shit so that you can make it to the next mission, which uh, I really like, and we need to decide at some point tonight whether we want this to be a positive circle or a negative circle. I think a positive circle because it goes more for the tone, but we're going to find out. We're gonna learn together. You and I, you my favorite people, and I, my little outlets. We're going to use a piece of software that I love. It is high tech. It is called Draw.io. And it is it's basically MS Paint in a browser, but I use it instead of MS Paint because I can save it directly to my Google Drive for the most part. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to insert a rectangle. This is a rectangle. Bonnie and Clyde, and I hope you all agree with me, they go on heists. Oh man, you can't say that. They go on heists. That's a fact of Bonnie and Clyde's life, right? Or they go on heists so that they can do cool outlaw shit. Actually, it's really interesting because that's not why Bonnie and Clyde go on heists. Bonnie and Clyde go on heists because they're fundamentally broken as human beings. Oh boy, are we going to get into this already? I think we are. Something that's really interesting about Bonnie and Clyde, looking at the 1967 movie as the canon representation of them for this sort of stuff, is that Bonnie and Clyde go and do heists because it is literally the only thing they know to do. Okay. Clyde, when Bonnie meets him, is not a good outlaw. He's very bad at it, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and he gets himself in a lot of trouble. So what happens is, it's really, really cool. Clyde wants to be a famous outlaw because he wants to have the fame and the money and all these things that he has heard outlaws have, but has never experienced. And so he meets this girl, and he's like, hey, I'm fucking shit hot. Here's my pistol. We're going to go rob a bank. Pull 3 jobs? What do you mean? And he then gets stuck in this life of crime because he fundamentally feels inadequate as a man. Is very, very specific. Holy shit. Pat's in this morning. I was like, no one's going to be around because it's 10:41 p.m. my time, which means it's like 3-something US time. But Pat's here, so everything's okay. It is a joy. I haven't seen you in so long, and I'm so excited you're running swords for GauntletCon. It's the best. So Clyde feels fundamentally broken as a man. I think he has erectile dysfunction, or he is possibly asexual. I'm not actually sure what it is, but Clyde either doesn't or can't have sex with Bonnie, which makes him feel fundamentally broken as a man, which means that the only way he can express his masculinity or his desired masculinity is through heists. Now, Bonnie, on the other hand, is in this position where she wants the fame and excitement of being an outlaw as well. But when she gets involved, she basically gets in too deep and doesn't know how to get herself out. We can say that the fact that she loves Clyde is a part of that, but she doesn't have the skill set to remove herself from the life of crime. Which, look, Bonnie and Clyde is some dark shit, okay? And that's okay because we're going to leverage into that, because what we're going to do. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to approach that. We are going to say, do outlaw shit, do cool outlaw shit. Is not what they do. Instead, they perform outlaw. They perform as outlaws. And they do that because they want the trappings of outlawness. They want the fame and the glory and all that sort of stuff, right? The other thing they do is they toxify each other. Yeah, I know. Well, if detoxify is a word, then toxify is a word. Okay. They toxify each other, and this is all the this is the sex Clyde can't have. Actually, it's not the sex Clyde can't have. It is Clyde pushing himself. No, it's kind of like Bonnie. I don't think she demands, but she certainly expects. So Bonnie expecting sex from Clyde is part of this toxification, right? We're going to bracket these because they're examples and nothing more. This is not an example. We're going to perform as outlaws, which is being tough in being touched in public, being tough in public. So this is your. I've spoken before about the scene of the outlaw walks in the saloon and the doors swing open, and the room goes quiet. Right. This is outlawing stuff, right? So here's how our game's going to go. We're going to demand that players do heists. So this is going to be a compulsory heist at the start of each session. In Blades, there is no rule that says you have to do a job that I know of. Kyle, if you're watching, comment, correct me, please. In fact, anyone, if you're watching, please comment, please correct me. In Blades in the Dark, there is no rule that says a group must do a job. What it says is actions have consequences. Consequences tend to need money. The only way you are limited in your downtime actions by the economy of scale of time, which is a game mechanic, right? So the way that Blades in the Dark works with this is we're going to do the Blades graph. I think. So Blades does not have a compulsory heist. What Blades has over here... okay. So Blades has the job, which I think is really important. Then Blades also has downtime, which is... what is downtime? Downtime is recovery and improvement. Right? That's basically what downtime is, because most people are going to use it for training or for vices. Training vices. Cool. So that's the job. Sorry, that's the recovery and improvement phase. And then there is the external consequences applied onto the group. This is in free play, which generates a problem which can only be solved by money. or by what's the word? Scoundrelism. Okay. You for like 3 seconds. Okay. So this is how Blades works as a cycle, right? I don't think actually. By the way, draw.io. Look at this shit. It also does a thing where I think you can connect them. So I'm connecting it to this bit. Yeah, that's what I want. Sure. Okay. Nailed it, draw.io. Okay, that's just what you want to do. That's fine. Okay. So this is our Blades thing. We are the and it tends to, you kind of, I think let's bring up the starting situation. Strange Forces. No? What's it called? Starting again. Starting situation, War in Crowsfoot. Okay. So, War in Crowsfoot starts with the Lamp Blacks, the Crows, and the Red Sashes. What happens is, this is our opening scene. We're in a cramped office of Bazo Baz overlooking the coal warehouse. Several of his thugs hang out, blah, blah, blah. He has a plan. Are you with them or against them? Or are you here to kill him for the Red Sashes? Cool. So, there's a job. Choose if they're with him, he has a job for them. Choose one of the options on the next page, or choose your own assignment. Okay, so score the war treasury, number 1. So what Bazo Baz does is he is this external consequence applied onto the group. He then generates a problem which can only be solved by scoundrelism, which is I need you to secure the war treasury for me. Go and steal it, right? Which is scoundrelly behavior. That generates a job. Once you do the job, you then go into your recovery phase because you've just spent all this stress at the job. You go into your recovery phase. Then that generates more external consequences because now you've sided with this group, so the Lamp Blacks are angry, and then they come at you, and then that creates a problem which you can only solve by scoundrelism because you either need money or you need time or something, so you do another job. That's Blades, right? That is, I would say, a very, very good and functional flowchart. Next one that I want to talk about is the one that we mentioned earlier, which is Night Witches. So you have your night mission, and then where you bomb stuff, right? And the night mission, you spend harm and mission pool for time. Basically, you get some time. You get the NKVD off your back for a little bit. You come back, and then you have to do like 3 or 4 things. So you have to repair the plane and the people. Oh, the plane and the people. This is your primary thing when you get back on the ground after night, which is you're like, oh my god, all our planes are fucked. All our people have 2 harm. Everyone's going to die if we do this. So you want to repair the plane and the people. Then this generates external consequences applied onto the group by what would you call it? 7 to 9s, right? By mixed success or failure. So .io, it's real good for me. And then that generates a problem which can only be solved by honestly, there's really being a Soviet airwoman, really airwoman. This is really interesting. Because Night Witches doesn't inherently say that you have to go on the next mission in order to solve this problem. It says you have to go on the next mission because you have to go on the next fucking mission. Like, what is, you have to go on the next mission. So that's really interesting, and there's something to speak to on that, right? So what I want to do is I want to take these that we have here, we want to bring them down, and we're going to basically make our own. So we have this heist, right? And this heist is going to, let's talk about economies with this. So in the heist, we're going to spend harm and mission pool in order to generate what I'm calling haul, right? Which is in order to generate cash. Barter. I'm trying to, as much as possible, use words that other PBTA games use because it helps my thinking. And then later we're going to take those names out and replace them with better names. Like barter is not a good name for my Wild West currency, right? But it works. So perform as outlaw. So what we want the harm. So you spend harm and mission pool and you generate cash and barter. So what we need is we need a way to get rid of harm and mission pool, right? Not get rid of, to generate harm and mission pool. So what we're going to say is, and this is the thing, this is where the performers outlaws thing is actually really interesting, because I don't think I want them to do the same thing. So where Night Witches says repair the plane and the people, what I want is, well, honestly, it's kind of the same thing, which is repair the people, obviously, and kind of and generate new reputation. Like, rather than I want my mission pool to be new stuff. So an example of a mission pool thing for me, an example of a mission pool thing for Night Witches is your plane is damaged, so you roll scrounge. When you succeed, you add one to the mission pool. What I'm thinking is, because I want to go out, I want to make the world bigger rather than smaller, is you have the find information roll, right? And when you make the find information roll, when you succeed, you add one to the mission pool, which means that we're talking about generating new stuff rather than fixing the old stuff. That's all it is. It's really the same move functionally. It's different mechanic. It's different fictionally. That's all. So repair the people and generate new mission pool, but like which is like rep and contacts and stuff. Then okay, and this is the thing, is I actually want these to be different. So I kind of want this. No, I don't want that. I want this. You, can you do it that way for me? Yeah, you can. Done. So what I want is repair the people. So I think what we're gonna do is spend. This is generate. Generating harm is a really bad term, but spending harm up here is a really bad term. Generate. Let's call it health, right? Which I'm only doing because generating harm and spending harm sounds really bad. And this is regain momentum. Regain momentum, which is generate mission pool. Okay. And then I want this to come down into. Please don't do that. That doesn't look as good. Whatever. I want this to come down into another one, which is like this is going to be my end of session move, which I don't actually know what it is yet, but it's going to be my end of session move. It's basically talk each other into another job. This is. Come on, baby. All right, you get deleted. We create a new one. It goes from there down to there. It does that through like a whoopie whoop thing, and then this connects up to that. Okay, so this is what I want. And the reason I want this is I want to jump back and forth between these two types of discussion. So this is helping. This is helping a lot. So what we're going to do is when we come back to these moves and we look at them, right, and we're seeing these ones, this one where they're spending time. See, this is the thing. This is the thing that I was talking about before. Bonnie and Clyde are inherently toxic, right? And that's okay. Okay, here's another thing. Here's another thing about here's another thing about what players and characters want. Okay, in Blades, players want to do jobs, characters want to do jobs. And in fact, players and characters want all of these, right? Absolutely. Like players want all these. Sorry, characters don't want consequences. Characters don't want problems. This is a two motivation. This is a two motivation. This is an away motivation. This is an away motivation. In mine, at the moment, I think I want this to be my two motivation, and I want this to be my away motivation. What I mean by that is you do this one because the moves are fun and because you want mission pull and because that's kind of interesting. And you do the away motivation one because you want to you want this outcome of generating health. You don't particularly want to do the moves themselves. This is similar to in Night Witches how we really want to reach out and we really want to scrounge and we really want to do these cool things. What we don't want to do is informal interviews with the NKVD. We don't want to get dragged into the NKVD's office and get questioned. So what we do, but we do that move because it is a motivation away from having your character removed from play, which I'm doing through harm, but Night Witches does through fictional implementation of the NKVD, and kind of through marks, which I'm also kind of planning to do. Okay, that's cool. So two motivation, away motivation, and talking each other into another job. I think that's really cool. So we now have set up. I pretty much know these moves, these heist moves. These heist moves were written really early in my plan, at least functionally, which is you get some resource and you either spend some harm or you're marked or you get corruption. I'm not sure. Oh, man. Sorry, I did it again. Did the thing again where I don't have things up big enough. Okay. we're just doing this now. Where you know, on a middle hit, whatever, extend, whatever. So you get haul, you get barter, and then you either get corruption or you get harm or you get marked, or maybe there's a fictional thing of like you having to kill someone, and maybe that's interesting, or maybe it's not. I'm not really sure. That will really depend on some characters and stuff like that. So there, and then getting away basically being just another chance to roll and fail and getting a shitload of harm. These are roughly equivalent to bombing run and wheels down or wayfind and navigate or whatever it's called in Night Witches. In both their impacts and their generations and what they're meant to do. So I'm really happy with them as an idea, and that's a good start. The hard bit was or is doing moves about to and away motivation. And so that's why I'm doing this thing about to motivation, generate momentum, generate mission pool. What we want is those moves. I am so glad that Google Sheets and Google Docs use different setups but the same zoom level. God damn, I hate this system. So let's leave the partner moves air moves. That should be team moves or something like that. I'm gonna call it we moves. Not we moves. So let's go to our our Clyde character. The kid moves. What I want to do, I want to eyeball someone. I want to make a threat. I want to draw my weapon. I want to tell tall stories. I want to walk away tall. Okay, so these are things. These are things that we want the player to want to do, and we want the character to want to do. So they need to be fun, and they need to be empowering, and they need to generate mission pool for the most part. Not all of them have to, because we want the drawing, the enacting two-sided violence one, we don't want to generate mission pool. We want that to be a solution to a problem, not a. That's a fictional boost, right? It's a solution to a problem, not planning ahead. Okay, this is good. This is good. This is good. And costs, and in terms of costs, we want to avoid harm. No, we're okay with it costing harm. The issue is that fictionally it's frustrating for the idea of staring someone down to cost harm. That is bothersome. As is making a threat. Making a threat probably shouldn't cost harm. Otherwise, we lose the delineation between that and actual violence. This is another really good way of showing how moves are different and how they're the same. So staring at someone and making a threat to someone are different because they have different fictional impacts. This one lets you ask questions. This one gets you something that you want, which means that they can have the same X's, right? But this one, this violence one about drawing, is so similar that if I put harm on the table if I put mission table on the mission pool on the table for both of them, and harm on the table for both of them, I will lose the fact that they are separate moves. Here's an example of somewhere that loses the fact that they're separate moves. I think I've spoken to this on Drawing the Owl before. And I've seen them a lot around Twitter, and I haven't spoken to Adrian about it. I think it's Adrian that does Impulse Drive, but I would like to, because I would like to ensure that my admiration and my respect for his work and their work, I'm not sure on Adrian's pronouns, sorry, their work in their system is appropriate. I want them to know that I'm all about this. However, However, comma, there are moves like act quick and keep your cool, which look like totally different moves. But when you actually get down to it, they're pretty much the same. So this one, act quick, you use your instincts or reflexes, and then you roll plus slick, and you either do it or on a 7 to 9 you do it, but you're off balance and rushed. You have disadvantage. You've left something behind. You're pushed to your limits. Suffer one stress, which in my terms would be, you lose one mission pool, you fictionally lose something, you suffer one harm. Right? Keep your cool is attempt to keep you cool under pressure or endure hardship. You roll plus stalwart. You get disadvantage going forward. You suffer one stress, or maybe you suffer a danger or hardship. You've left something behind. These moves are functionally the same in a way that that bothers me from an elegance perspective. And I talk about elegance a lot like it matters, like it fucking means something, and it doesn't, but it does to me. And it bothers me that these are two different moves because they don't need to be. And I don't want to have two moves like this in my game. So that is why having, let's just go out a little bit. That is why having this layout helps me to ensure that my question move and my intimidation move are different. Sorry, are similar in results because they have these different fictional results. But my harm move, or my kill someone move, and my intimidate that you're going to kill someone move have to have different stakes, and that's what this helps me with. So, that is why these two motivation ones are all going to be really cool stuff that generates mission pool, and the discussion, the stuff that people have to do together as Bonnie and Clyde is going to be really shitty, but is going to relieve stress. Do we want to use health or stress, or fuck it? See, this is the thing. I don't want to get caught up in semantics like that now. I want to stay on functionality. So, let us talk about these moves. Fiction, interrogation, intimidation, enacting violence. Yep, eyeball, make a threat, draw. I like that. I don't like getting mission pool as a functionality because that's not what I needed to do. What do I need? So escape bad situation. That's a good one. I have this way for players to get out with violence, but I need a way for them to get out without violence. Escape bad situation without being violent. I think this is about like impressing people, right? This is about like being a performing the role of famous cowboy, a moose cowboy. So to manipulate, I do not need, and I don't really want, and that is why I've given up on this move halfway through. Okay, let's talk about the air. Let's talk about the air. Is, if I haven't discussed it before, is the partner who? Oh, okay. That is a really good question. That is a really, really, really good question, Pat, about countdown clock, because I was considering having a track called Heat. The issue is this goes back to something we learned during Homefront, which is the mechanics that you put into the game define the focus of the players and therefore the focus of the story. So if I put a mechanic in called Heat, or wanted level, or law, or sheriff, or role plus sheriff, right? If I put that mechanic in, what I'm telling people is this is a game about outrunning the law. And I don't think it is. This is a game about the fundamental tensions inherent in the relationship. It just so happens that running away from the law is a fun thing to do with each other. This game would work as two. I want this game to be able to work as two race car drivers who are in love with each other, but who have to go on races. And they like maybe race against each other or something, right? Or maybe they're in like V8s and it's a team sport, and they swap halfway through. That happens. Drivers do that. I promise. I've seen cars once. So I don't want heat. What I do want is fundamental failure of the relationship. And that's my countdown clock. So in Night Witches, which I don't have up for some reason, Night Witches playbooks. Okay. In Night Witches, you have a clock. And that clock is your marks. And I really like marks because they do something very special on their own. So marks are a clock. Think of it as a, whatever this is, 13 segment clock, wherein you die at the end, right? Embrace death and face your final destiny. This is fundamentally exactly the same as the Blades system of having, wow, no, that is a broad thing to say. This is very, very similar to Heat. A Blades system of having a wanted level that ticks up. And then when your wanted level gets high enough, your only options are entanglements. Heat. 6, arrest. Demonic, notice, or show. 4, slip or interrogation, right? These really bad ones. I could have sworn this was a more complex system for some reason. Anyway, because I'm thinking of, you know what I'm thinking of? I don't even know if I have an up-to-date version of this. Scum and Villainy. So Scum and Villainy has... Yeah, this is a really... rules reference Heat. Okay. So, entanglements. When you're on wanted level 3 or 4, I'd roll on wanted level 3 or 4. You're getting arrested and you're out of gas and all that sort of stuff, right? Like you have these are your, none of them are really end of game things, which is what makes them different to Night Witches. But it's very functionally similar in that you have this constant ticking clock of heat increasing to get to arrest. Blades is a little bit different in that you can kind of untick these with heat, but that's not what I want to do. I don't want to untick. I want it to be... Okay, so fundamentally, Bonnie and Clyde die in a shootout, right? That's their story. That is what happens to them. Cowboys and cowgirls ride off into the sunset. What I want to do is I want to have an option for them to ride off into the sunset, and I want to have a mark which says, you're surrounded, turn yourself in, or get shot. They're your only options. So the reason that that's important to me is that, as I said before, about fundamentally where we focus as a game. I don't know if you can read these marks here, this line 38, but the marks, stuff like, I speak truth to power, I act against my best interest, I distance myself from those close to me. It's so much more about the character than about the law. And so if I go back to what I was saying earlier about wanting this to work in a race car game, I want this, a race car game about kissing. I call it Schumacher's Smackers, Schumacher's Lip Smackers. when playing Schumacher's Lip Smackers, I don't need to consider an external force in heat or the law, because I have the internal dissolution of the relationship, because that final mark is always you die, or you break up, or you, like, your relationship is over and your story is over. The other thing that marks do that wanted level doesn't, although wanted level kind of can in other ways. No, wanted level does do. Okay. The other thing that marks do that wanted level doesn't do, but Blades does in other ways, is humane exit points. As a player, I choose which mark to tick. It's not up to the system to tell me which mark to tick, and I don't have to tick the next one on the list. You'll notice in Night Witches that suffer the death of a friend or lover is the first one on the list. You'll also notice that about fourth from the bottom here, there's advance and grow, which is get an advancement, right? Become a better person. So these marks, like, if you're playing, okay, Fraser got on Twitter and talked about prescriptivism versus suggestivism in moves. Marks are really interesting because marks are suggestive, and marks can be good things. There is a mark that says advance and grow. So if you say, we're doing act up, I act up to the colonel. He gets angry at me. I'm marked. I tick advance and grow. We can fictionally talk about how my character grows from this experience, right? And becomes better. Or we can talk about suffer the death of a friend or lover, where the colonel yells at me and then says at the end of it, and by the way, you know, your lover at home or your lover here or whatever has died. These are really interesting because they're very useful and productive, but they're player driven. They let players choose when they're going to do certain parts of their characters. So I'm not sure if I want that, but I definitely do want the capacity at any time for a player to tick the you're surrounded, turn yourself in, or be shot mark. Because I want players to choose when to end this game. Because that's super useful. And I like that. And I think you should just be able to leave a game whenever you're done playing it. And I don't think design should fight that. So. Here's the thing. These moves that I've put down originally for the team are things like look after each other and lift the mask and all that sort of stuff. And that is not how Bonnie and Clyde interact, and it's not how I want my partner and my cowboy to interact. So instead of that, when I talk about intimacy, what I do want, now this isn't like, so we're a fatal wound I'm really happy with, by the way. What I need is functionally, I need healing harm. You're right about that. I need intimacy. You're right about that. I need calling them on their shit, right? And I need the Story Brewers move. Now, the Story Brewers move is an important one as well. I will talk about that when I get there. So let's talk about this. Healing harm. So instead of look after each other, this is what I've done. Look after each other. I don't think it's about that. I think it's actually about pushing your harm on someone else. So it's like when it's like offload your burden, right? Offload your burden, and the trigger is when you push your harm onto your partner, onto each other. Okay, if you haven't watched Duet's conversation with Lauren, you absolutely need to, because Lauren will talk some fucking truth. Lauren will preach some truth about consent mechanics. Partner moves, we moves are rolled. I cannot call them partner moves. We moves are rolled together. What that means is, or the intent is that they're rolled together. What that means is that if you say to me, okay, so in Homefront, right? The share what little you have move is an intimacy move. If I say, well, I want to roll the share what little you have move, if you say to me, that's not what we're doing here, we're not being intimate, I'm not accepting what you're sharing from that perspective, then that's it. Like, we're not. People really need to take me off lists that I'm not in anymore. Yeah, so I need the ability as a player to say, my character is not engaging in your move. I refute the stakes of your move. There's a lot of control gates built into PBTA that I've spoken about before, like how in Go Aggro, when you pull a gun on someone, they get to choose whether you shoot them or they do what you want. Like, that's a decision that the aggrieved party makes. That's a really good control gate. I kind of need a control gate at a player level for what happens when one player wants to, especially if these moves are going to be about fairly. I don't want to use the term toxic because of the sheer amount of baggage associated with it, but really, really unhealthy ways of interacting with each other. Okay, pushing your harm onto your partner is not a healthy way of interacting with each other. There it is. I'm making a statement. Flag in the ground. That's the hill I'm dying on. So the difference is, if I say to you, okay, you have one harm, which in this game maybe represents a sore tummy, and I say, oh, I'm going to use the heal each other's harm move, which says when you look after each other, you do this. So I'm looking after you. I get you some soup, and then I roll, and you lose your harm. But if the other player either wants to play out that harm or doesn't want their character to be looked after, wants their character to reject it, that needs to be built somewhere into the move. So the move can either be when you do a nice gesture for someone, they choose either A, they reject the gesture, or B, they do the gesture and it's really helpful. The problem with that is that's a non-choice 50% of the time. That's dumb. That's not true. That's not a thing. The problem with that is that is okay. That will never be a choice. What we're doing there is we're doing the impulse drive thing of having two moves. We're just putting them together. And the move is when someone does something you like, that is nice. And when someone does something nice that you do not want. And we're putting them into one move and saying, decide if you want it, and then do the thing. And then resolve it as per a regular move, or refuse to resolve it. So I'm not going to get into it right now because it is too big an issue, but consent, player level and character level consent needs to be built into the triggers of every one of these moves. Just in case you thought I was doing a very easy game. So calling them on their shit. Calling them on their shit is a very toxic behavior. Not toxic behavior. No, so this thing. When you have toxic behaviors, you need a way to react to them. So if somebody says, "Oh, I'm the kid. I'm the fastest gun in the West. I go and I meet the lawman out in the crowd, and I say to him, you back off, lawman, because we're not going to be gentle with you. And I need to drop this. We're not going to come quietly. And the lawman's like, nah, I'm taking you in. Marco, the kid Schumacher. And then I say, I draw my pistol and I shoot him right in the chest. And we know that the sheriff is the heir's father, right? Then the heir, when he goes to when he goes to the kid, when he goes to Marco, the kid Schumacher, he needs a way to say, I don't like the thing that you did. And I want to resolve this conflict between our characters in a way that isn't going to be just you and me shouting at each other until we don't get anywhere. And that is an interesting place for a move, because it's basically when you have a polite disagreement, the move, which kind of exists in terms of Monster Hearts 2's Shut Down and Night Witch's Reach Out are both kind of different ways of approaching that. So Monster Hearts 2 looks like we've gone through these moves so often. I don't think we've actually spoken about Shut Someone Down as a move. So Shut Someone Down, when you shut someone down, you roll with cold. On a 10 up, choose from below. On a 7 to 9, choose from below, but you come across pulling and they give you a condition. Okay. So let's swap condition for mark, and let's drop string for harm or something like that, right? And what we say is when one of you shuts the other down, each roll with cold. On a 10 up, blah, 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 7, 9, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Does a bunch of things. Condition return. Or, mission pool or whatever, right? Harm, marks, whatever. That is a very functional way of doing that. That would work. And it is like a fairly toxic behavior when one of you shuts the other down. The issue is my character. The issue is the moments when I, as a player, want to consent to being shut down, but I, as a character, do not. And that needs to be built into the move somehow. It's fucking difficult. This is very difficult. Okay, let's look at the Night Witches one, because it's a little bit different. Reach Out. Reach Out is very... Oh, actually, let's look at Alas for the Awful Sea as well. Night Witches, Reach Out. Okay. I got them all. I promise. They're all over here. Night Witches Reach Out. When you reach out to someone by letter or person, you reveal a significant new truth and you roll the dice. Okay, on a 10 plus, you do this. Now, Reach Out's an interesting one because this doesn't have a consent structure. Too small. It's an interesting one because it doesn't have a consent structure built into it. When I reach out to you, I reveal a significant new truth and I roll the dice. And then the stakes of that is I can remove 1 harm from you. I also maybe can change the tone of your regard slot rather than mine, which is another consent issue there. And I can have one in the middle. Okay. Otherwise, I'm ineffective, misunderstood, or understood all too clearly. And each of those are problematic. Alas for the Awful Sea, or as I call it, Alas for the Wonderful Game. Moves, does a similar thing where it's about okay. We kind of want to talk about that at some point too, because that's an interesting consent problem. Manipulate another. If we manipulate a player character, if they do it, they get +1 to the next roll if they refuse to act under pressure. Now, this is something that gets used in a lot of PBTA games where it's the carrot and the stick, right? This is problematic from a player consent perspective because it's still the mechanics forcing something on my character that I might not want to interact with. Okay, this goes back to a core fundamental of PBTA, which is when someone makes a move, we all know what the stakes are, right? When someone says, I want to intimidate someone, you say, that's cool, but remember, a big part of intimidation is they can call your bluff, and they can either demand that you hurt them or have you walk away. That's what makes PBTA so different from OSR, in that it's got pre-established consequences. So what this means is that if you want to engage with me on a move, I can't negotiate consequences. I don't have that capacity because that's not what PBTA lets me do. Instead, what I can do is negotiate not to engage with the move. I negotiate what the move is. So this is a very there is such a good example of this, which is Monster Hearts. Oh, hey Jen, you're my fave. A pleasure to see you. Okay, Monster Hearts has this. Monster Hearts 2 does this. In Monster Hearts 2, when someone rolls to turn someone on, the stakes are clear. You can give yourself to okay, Jen, you and I play Monster Hearts. It's a joy. You are playing your Infernal, I think you're playing at the moment, and I'm playing a werewolf because werewolves are the fucking best version of Monster Hearts because you just be super destructive. Okay, when you turn someone on, you're going to roll to turn me on. You roll with hot. Now, I as a player, I have an issue with this because my three options are: I get embarrassed and act awkward, which in Monster Hearts is a very disempowering thing. I give myself to you, which is problematic in a different way, or I promise something I think you want. And the issue is these are all coming down to one problem, Jan, which is that you are turning me on, and my options are about how I respond as a sexual being, and I have decided that my character is asexual. So my problem is that as an ace character, as a player of an ace character, I refuse the negotiation that you are presenting to me. So I can't interact with this move. And then this happens. For rules about asexuality and non-attraction, aces and aros get their own approach to this, which is it's a really, really cool compromise. Avery is so much smarter than me and will be a better designer than me forever. But this is the best design decision I've seen in so long. Instead of rolling turn someone on, we negotiate to roll shut someone down. Okay, we actually split it in half. We actually kind of split the decision in half. You want to roll turn someone on because it uses hot, and that's a stat you're really good at, so you're going to roll hot. I decide the outcomes and decide that none of those suit me, so I'm going to use the shut someone down outcomes. Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is the fucking juice of the situation, is that we've got this move that lets players refuse consent to interact with the move, which is awesome. Now, my previous way of doing this is let's go for plead your case. So in Homefront, plead your case is this move that when we're working together, nope, doesn't work. All right, fuck it. It's about NPCs, but we're gonna pretend it's about PCs. No, fill them out. Okay, fill them out's really interesting. So when you have a heated question, a tense moment, or offer questioning glance, you roll plus longing spent on a click. When we roll together, if we both roll well, we both get to ask whatever question we want, and we gain some hope, and everything's great. And that's awesome. If I and then there's two other results. There's either I get to ask a question that is like really nice and friendly and helpful, or I get to ask questions really conflict driven and causes problems from my perspective, causes problems with me, right? How do you show me how I most bother you? How do you show me what's like? Yeah, it's this. How do you show me how you've lied to me recently? Like it's definitely this. It causes problems for my character asking the questions. So what happens is, in Homefront, when you roll feel them out, if you want to feel me out, and I as a player don't think that my character doesn't want you to feel them out, I refuse to interact with the move. And when that happens, you lose this option because you can't roll with me, so you can't read me well, and you lose pretty much this option except on like sixes or something like that. You mostly are going to get this higher result. It's the bad stuff. The how do you show me how you've lied to me recently stuff. It still has a bit of a problem just saying it out loud there that if I, as a player, I'm like, no, I don't want you to read me. And you're like, well, I'm going to. There's a problem. But maybe that's okay. Or maybe I just feel that way because reading someone is such a low-grade passive interaction. In that circumstance. Okay, so let's go back to where we're at with calling them on their shit. The easiest way to do this is to demand that both players take active action to make something happen. When you push your harm onto each other, right? It's not like I get to do when you blame each other for what happened. Okay. So this is if you blame me and I'm not blaming you, we don't interact with the move. If you blame me and I blame you, we have both agreed we're doing a fictional thing, we're interacting with the move. So the Story Brewers move is cough button. If you ever get to play a game with Haley and V are two of my favorite people in the world. They are exceptionally close in their play with each other. They interact exceptionally closely. And what they'll do is this beautiful moment where, and I like them a lot because they're like me in that they look to the game's mechanics to help them. The two of them could and do just sit in rooms and free play very successfully. They have no reason to look to mechanics. But what they'll do is they'll have conflict. They'll have character-to-character conflict. And one of them will look at the other one and say, I want to roll a move that makes you tell me stuff about your character or about yourself. This is where the Story Brewers move is important. The story, feel them out, is the Story Brewers move. A questioning glance. What was it? A tense moment, a heated conversation, or a questioning glance. That is the Story Brewers move. So what I think I can do with that is I want it to have really similar triggers. What I'd love to say is like when you share a heated moment, right? When you share a tense moment, the issue is I'm now in this problem where sharing a tense moment and blaming each other is kind of the same thing. Now, maybe that's okay. Maybe that will come out in the wash, and we'll talk about functionality. After all, going aggro and manipulating might be the same thing. There's a lot of these games where one thing might be another. You know, are you keeping a cool or gazing into the abyss? Are you running away, or are you lashing out physically? If I push past you to get out the door, you know, am I doing this or am I doing this? Or right, okay. So maybe having moves that are that close are okay. So let's not worry about these at the moment because we're going to come back to them. What we're going to do instead is we're going to do this bit. So we've got, we should really freeze these cells, shouldn't we? Can I freeze these cells? I don't even know if I can on freeze. We can. One column. Okay, that's weird. You know what? Can you freeze up to current column? You can. Okay, this will work. So, push your harm on each other. We're gonna heal harm. All right. That's the primary job of yelling at each other about. Oh my god. Okay, these two are the same move. When you push your harm on someone, you blame each other for what happened. It's like when you, oh, maybe not. But I'm thinking that could be the same move, which is like when you like push your when you offload your burdens to where they belong, right? Like you're pushing your harm onto your partner because you blame them for what happened. Anyway, maybe blame each other for what happened is the pushing your harm onto each other move. Okay, cool. This is the functional bit. So push your harm is the functional bit. Actually, and the way we offload our harm, this is the necessity, and we do that by blaming each other for what happened. And when we do that, when we blame each other for what happened, we heal harm. We also we don't get mission pool. We don't. Okay, we also don't get harm. That was a problem that came up in Homefront as well. That some of my moves were like that. So you could heal harm, and then on mixed success you could pick to get harm, and it didn't work. It doesn't work. So marks, corruption. Okay, corruption is obviously a really big one there. As you blame each other, you we're going to call this Mark's clock, or do we want that to be two different things? Okay, this is another question that I've had coming back is about economy, which is do I want? Okay, Pat. So originally, Pat, we were talking about do I want heat to be a clock? And I said no, I want to use marks instead. And then I thought maybe I tie marks to corruption. So as you get more corrupted, you pick marks. But then at the end, that's really coming down to like these two columns, right? Which is like harm and corruption, which is also marks, which is also the clock. So do I have the clock and marks be separate? Do I have the clock and harm be separate? Do I have the clock and mission pool or corruption be separate? Or do I say there's corruption, there's marks, and there's harm, and all of them are independent clocks? And I think that one's probably going to be the way it goes. But that's a ponderer. That's an up here problem for now, not a down here problem. I pointed to my mouth as I changed over there. Okay, so marks clock is dumb because everything's a clock, so we're just talking about marks. So when we blame each other, we corrupt maybe each other. Maybe that's a really interesting part of this. Interesting. So maybe instead of like in the playbook moves, in the single moves, when I roll to shoot someone, I mark corruption. That sounds pretty right. Maybe when we blame each other, I choose the consequences for you, and you choose the consequences for me. And you know what? Maybe that'll create like some real shitty moments between people where someone's like, "Well, you get corruption." And they're like, "Well, I don't want it." And you're like, "Well, too bad. It's the decision that I made, and I'm not sure." And again, that's okay because you're choosing to interact with the move, so you consent to it when you interact with the move, which maybe I don't really know. Okay, it's an interesting idea. It's an idea for probably for A/B testing, um, about maybe corrupting each other. Maybe in all of these moves, we choose each other's consequences. Jen and Pat, you'll if you're all still here, please get up in my chats about whether you think picking each other's consequences is going to be as bad an idea as I think it is. Story Brewer's move. Story Brewer's move has a fictional benefit, which is, oh, by the way, really interestingly, offload your harm, blaming each other for something, does not have a fictional benefit. It's not about solving problems. It's about getting rid of this harm and then causing problems. So it's actually got a fictional cost, more than anything else, which is important to me. And interestingly, the first way it was written, in looking after each other, that did have a fictional benefit because it was about intimacy and it was about closeness. This is about toxicity, right? Man, it's 11:50 and I am so tired. I'm going to bed soon. Share a tense moment. Share a tense moment needs. What happens when you share a tense moment? I don't think you mark. I maybe marks. Okay, this is an interesting one. Do we want players to corrupt each other when they're trying to investigate each other? Okay, what if when you're sharing, okay, what if when you're blaming each other, all of your benefits are external, there's stuff like harm and all of your, and maybe even mission pool, right? Like maybe even blaming each other sets up mission pool in some cool way. But when you share a tense moment, all of your costs are those external ones about marks. And all of your benefits are like fiction. This is a move for when you want to explore the fiction, not for when you want to engage with something overly mechanized. When you offload your burdens to where they belong, we've already said that's the same thing. I want like when you smooch, right? I want like, what about when you make promises you can't keep or won't keep? This is something that Clyde does a lot, and Bonnie does a lot without knowing it. I think Clyde knows it when he does this. Knowingly make promises you can't keep. Maybe have a non-overarching, non-consent move similar to shutting down. Yeah, see, that's another really interesting way of doing it, which is like, so what would that look like? That would be when you push them away, right? When you push them away. or when you put shit, Pat, you're amazing. When you put distance between each other, put distance between yourselves. When you put distance between yourselves, maybe you could untick corruption. Like maybe that's the only way in the game to untick corruption. You certainly don't get mission pool. You certainly don't heal. Maybe do you heal harm? See, this is the thing. This is where games become really interesting, because games are all about decisions. They're decisions that we make at the design phase that say something, that have to say something. So we're going to create this move called when you push the other person away, because what it means is when someone when pushing someone away is really interesting, because pushing someone away is not always an intentional fact. The same as shutting them down, and to be honest, the same as turning them on. Okay, this is really interesting. This is I think Pat's had a really good point here. Co-designer credit to you, Pat. The move that I want to make is I have a lot of harm. I have 4 harm. You have no harm, but unfortunately, one of the over reaching successes of blame each other for your problems is we trade harm, right? So I would go to 0 and you would go to 4, and that's fucked. I don't want that. Wait, other way around. You don't want that, so you refuse to engage in the move as a player, and the way that you express that is through your character. This isn't, when I say refuse to engage with, I want to be really clear that I'm not talking about X card, bread, stop, cut, break, anything like that. I'm talking about players that are okay with the way the game is going, but see the story going in a different direction in a way they want to do through the mechanics. So what I do is, instead of saying, yeah, okay, you know what, you and I, let's blame each other for our problems. Instead of doing that, I say, and I have the authority to say, no, this counts as push each other away. And then we get to roll that move. And all that move might do is, so shut them down is quite an impactful move from memory, about like giving conditions and giving and taking strings and stuff like that. But all this might do is just be like, maybe on like a worst case scenario, you both gain 1 harm, or you're both marked, or something like that, right? So this is really similar. This is really similar to the Night Witches bit, where what's the move? Act up. So when you try to get your way, if the person you are imposing on is a PC, she can do it or not. But if she doesn't, you both are marked, right? This is really similar, because what we're saying is, when you push each other away, now, you might not mean to push me away, but I'm telling you as a player that you trying to blame me for what happened does push me away, and I in return push you back, which lets me interact with this move. Means that we both get marked on a big one. But there's also some sort of benefit to it as well. There's definitely like a fictional, like a control level benefit. Reduces mission pool and either heal harm, add corruption, or take harm, heal corruption. Yeah, absolutely. Like, absolutely. I think one of the fundamental things we're saying about this game is that Bonnie and Clyde corrupt each other, right? I think that is fundamental. Speaking of fundamental, Australian hip hop crew Thundamentals just released a new album, and I haven't listened to it, but I'm very excited. Heal corruption. Boy, that looks amazing when it does that. Okay, heal corruption. And I think this is the only time. I think that by putting distance between each other, that is the only. maybe this can heal corruption. Maybe like super maybe, right? I want corruption to be almost an inexorable clock. I certainly want marks to be an inexorable clock. So maybe I don't need corruption to be that anymore. Maybe corruption can be a bit more back and forth. But basically, when you do things to put each other together, stuff like um, uh, smooching and shit like that, um, you gain corruption. And when you push each other apart, when you push each other away, yeah, fuck yeah, Pat. Okay, cool. Um, reduce mission pool. Yeah, so regarding reducing mission pool, I'm really hesitant to have mission pool be reduced at all because of the way that it works as an economy. In that it's kind of used up each heist. I'm really hesitant to. Imagine a graph, and on yon graph we have and it's just resource over time, and we've got this really nice curve of like harm where we get a lot of harm in the heist, and then we burn off a bit by going to the doctor, and then we burn off a bit by smooching, and we burn off a bit by blaming each other for our problems, right? Um, and then we get to um, when we get to mission pool, I don't want that same curve. I kind of want mission pool to just be like a build up and spend because that's the way it's done in Night Witches. Just saying it out loud, I realize the only reason I want to do that is because that's the way it's done in Night Witches. It's disappointing. I'm better than that. But what I did realize in saying that is two things. One, midnight, I'm hitting my breaking point, so we're gonna roll out of this soon. But two, when you make promises you can't keep or won't keep, this is our intimacy move, right? This is intimacy, and the way that intimacy works is, um, you you what defines the intimacy is not the sex, right? You can bang if you want. If you want, you can put things in things or on things or around things. You can smash whatever genitals that you want together and call it intimacy. But you don't trigger the move until you make promises you can't keep. Um, until you quietly make promises you can't. Which I see this as like the pillow talk move. Um, like oh Clyde, thank you for finally putting your big old barrow testicles all over my parka bits. I'm so grateful. And then Clyde looks at her and says, well, Bonnie, I'm always going to be there to protect you. And she goes, oh really, always? You'll always be there to protect me? All of a sudden we're making promises that we can't keep, because Clyde isn't always there to protect her because she dies by being shot with a lot of bullets a lot of times. I like the idea of the intimacy of the two leads to corruption, and pushing each other away is the only way to heal corruption. It really shows how the relationship is doubtful. Yes, it does. It does. But the thing is, Pat, that's really interesting about this is that we said at the beginning it's a compulsory heist. Your only two options at the moment, I guess three options at the moment, are ride off into the sunset together, and live happily ever after, because that's the way the game's going to end. Die in a shootout, in which case, maybe that's a happy ending, maybe not, whatever. Depends on what your goals are. And the third one is you turn yourself in. What this means is that um, your fundamental endings of the game if you want happiness, you need to be together, but you are so horrific for each other. And that's the thing. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier about the fact that Bonnie and Clyde are not a good couple. They just don't have the tool set to be anyone else. So that's going to be our key here. Okay. So the only thing we need on this list that we don't have at the moment is talk each other into one last job, and the last one is ride into the sunset, right? Well, the thing about turning yourself in, right, is you get to decide to do that by ticking the mark. So you don't need to move to do it. There's a mark that you tick, and when you tick that mark, you then turn yourself in. Oh man, I really need the person who was meant to be on the PhonoSim team to take it back off me. I'm so angry. Okay. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what's next. We're going to talk about what's next because this is important. So what I've done so far is I have the stakes of the move in a very broad sense. I know that it's going to give this or it's going to take this, and I know that it's going to fit this or it's not going to fit this. What I need to do is I need to flesh out all of these. Wow, let's just get rid of that unfreeze thing, hey? Freeze no rows. Nope, we're just gonna leave that there, are we? Boy. Tell you what, gotta love yourself some Google Sheets, don't you? Oh, no columns, that's why. Okay, that was on me. That one's not your fault, Google Sheets. So at the moment, I have these on a full success, on a partial success, on a full success, on a partial success. Things. What we need to do is we need to turn these into these or these, right? We need to basically write our basic moves. So stuff like this, right? So at the moment, I have probably too many basic moves, but it's because there's a thing when I'm doing PBTA to begin with, where you're like, oh, this is very narrow, this is very narrow, this is very narrow. And it's not until you realize you can broaden it out. So you say, oh, I want to move where they heal each other's harm. And then you go, oh, I also want to move where they blame each other for their problems. And it's not until you realize that they're the same thing that I can really start cutting down the number of moves. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to do 3 things before the next app, which is, look, I'm pretty busy tomorrow, maybe on Thursday. If not Thursday, it will have to be sometime like late next week because of the way my schedule is at the moment. But we're going to have moves written out that are going to be functional, and that's all. They're not even going to be good. They're going to be functional. We're going to catch you, Pat. Best of luck. I will speak to you another time. We're going to have moves written out that are going to be functional. We're going to have them laid out that it's going to be easy to read, but not like functionally easy to read, but not beautiful. And the third thing we're going to do is we're going to identify as many overlaps between them as we can. Fourth thing that we're going to do is this group, people watching this. I think if you haven't listened to the song is called, it's part of the Bonnie and Clyde musical I'm talking about, and it's the second track. And the second track is called This World Will Remember Me. That's the third one, sorry. Or Picture Show, which is the second one. Picture Show is all right. The World Will Remember Me is really good. Listen to either of those and just ride that vibe for a bit. That will help. That will definitely help. And then when we get together, if you want to watch the 1967 Bonnie and Clyde, you absolutely should, because it's pretty much what I'm basing this whole thing off. And when you come back, we can talk about some more stuff. So that's going to be the plan. Basic moves will be written, or we will do writing of them in the next Drawing the Owl. And then after that, we will lay out playbooks. And then after that, we will organize a playtest. God, I'm excited. We really got somewhere. We really did some good stuff with the partner moves, with the Wii moves, and with what my kind of moves need to do in my economy, and that flowchart is really helpful to me at the moment. I'm very stoked about this flowchart because this totally makes sense. Yeah, this is the game that I want to write. I'm so excited about it. The other bit of homework that we have is, Jen, you have to tell me all about your Monster Hearts game. I'm a little bit offended that you haven't already. I like Monster Hearts, and I like your particular method of play. So that would be good. Okay. I love you all. I will speak to you. Let's not commit to Thursday. Let's say Thursday is going to be a writing day, and if I want to stream that, I will, but we won't commit to it. What we will commit to instead is, let me have a look at what my next week's schedule is like. A professional would do this off camera. Okay, next week's schedule. I'm going to say Wednesday. So let's go for Wednesday. Time to be confirmed. That's Wednesday my time, which might end up being Tuesday night US time. Yeah, Wednesday day, Tuesday night US time will be wonderful. And we'll talk about basic moves and everything like that. Until then, the key thing is to keep caring. The key thing is to keep up with everything. The key thing is to keep up with your sleep, because otherwise your brain falls out. And after 8 days of work in a row, my brain has well and truly fallen out. It's been a joy. To everyone out there, please keep giving a hoot. Oh, I'm too tired for this these days. I can't do it past midnight. Oh, fuck.